It speaks to the sorry state of affairs in Canada that there's so much corruption around Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government that I frankly haven't touched the ArriveCan App scandal because, on its face, at least to me, it didn't look like anything more than typical Liberal government graft, awarding sole source contracts to Liberal Party friends who are completely incompetent to actually fulfill the contracts, so they just subcontract it out to other people and then they keep a big chunk of money themselves for effectively acting as glorified middlemen. But when I actually look deeper into it, I actually agree with Conservative Party MPs that this is really bad. It actually kind of is uncovering a new type of corruption that we haven't seen in this Liberal government that goes past just giving out financial awards to people who have done a lot of work for the Liberal Party behind the scenes. This is now turning into basically a full network of corruption, a lot like the Chrétien sponsorship scandal from the early, like sort of later 90s, early 2000s. And so I want to get into a video that Conservative MP Larry Brock posted. But to basically give a short overview myself, effectively what went on is a $53 million contract was awarded to Liberal Friends, or at least this random flunky app development organization that wasn't actually qualified to actually create the ArriveCan app to do the whole COVID passport type thing. And so not only did they contract it out to other people, the vast majority of the money that was then paid out to everyone who was either on the contract or subcontracted went to literally nothing. No work was done. It was effectively probably Liberal Party insiders being just paid out millions of dollars from Canadian taxpayer money through a shady app development organization who does not actually develop apps. It is absolutely wild. And when I say that this is a lot like the sponsorship scandal, the thing with the sponsorship scandal with Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin was that they only spent about $3 million. Larry Brock will get into this, but he doesn't explain what the sponsorship scandal is. Obviously, it's a tight video he's making. He wasn't going to, do all that history. But the sponsorship scandal was the Liberal government back in the 90s and early 2000s spending a few $1 million in Quebec to basically promote all the programs and services and achievements the federal Liberal government has done in order to try and stave off separatist sort of feelings within Quebec, basically spread propaganda in order to, make the Liberal government look really good and encourage Quebecers to stay. That's not scandalous at all. What was scandalous was the fact that the vast majority of the money in the sponsorship scandal did not go to anyone who was actually doing advertising work. Some of it definitely did, but a lot of it ended up just going to Liberal Party friends who were then taking this taxpayer money from the Liberal government and then donating back maxed out donations to the Liberal government. Multiple people were doing this. So it was effectively the Liberal government giving itself taxpayer money. Absolutely insane. Or the Liberal Party giving itself taxpayer money that the Liberal government handed off to Liberal Party insiders. Insane. And this is why this ArriveCan scandal is actually like a ticking time bomb right now in Justin Trudeau's government, because it looks and smells a lot like sponsorship, but on a much larger scale. When these app contractors are taking this $53 million, they're obviously keeping a large chunk themselves, but then 75% of the money does not go to anyone doing any work on the app. Well, I wonder how much money ended up coming back to the Liberal government through this web of sort of handouts that was going on. Something is obviously going on, and Justin Trudeau and the NDP are really hurting for cash. So I could see the Liberals using this as a device to try and top up their actual donations because they have been getting clobbered by the Conservatives. But anyways, I'm going to pass it over to Larry Brock in just a second, but I just want to quickly mention that I, Wyatt Claypool, someone in the last video said I should say my name slower, so I, Wyatt Claypool, I'm running for the Calgary Signal Hill Conservative Party nomination. So if you live on the west side of Calgary, please buy a Conservative Party membership. Check out my website in the description below, WyattClaypool.com, and let's make sure that we actually have real conservatives representing strong conservatives ridings like Signal Hill. There's a bunch of pro-lockdown people, pro-censorship people, very liberal equity candidates trying to run in my area, and we want to be able to stop them so we actually have solid conservative representation. Anyways, here's Larry Brock, and I'll let him take it away to explain what was going on here.
Hello, friends. You won't believe what we learned last week at committee. GC Strategies, that two-person firm working out of their basement, is facing even more controversy with its multi-million-dollar contract with the government and the ArriveCan app. This scam has grown to alarming rates. Let's put this into perspective. The sponsorship scandal that brought down the Chrétien Liberal government was only $3 million. Arrive scam has already fleeced the taxpayers for $54 million, 18 times more than that previous scandal. The procurement ombudsman in his report confirmed that 76% of subcontractors did not perform any work on the app.
So I got a couple of those numbers wrong. It was $54 million, not 53, and it was 76, not 75. So don't come at me. I was literally only a single digit off. But yeah, this is a very good way of explaining it from Larry Brock.
Zero. Yet GC Strategies billed millions of dollars for these so-called services. Remember that the ArriveCan app was originally budgeted for only $80,000. And to put that in perspective, we had some skilled Canadian tech developers duplicate the app from scratch in a weekend for just a few thousands of dollars. No wonder why the ombudsman referred to this as a bait and switch, which means a fraudulent sales practice where a purchaser, in our case, you the taxpayer, is attracted by advertisement of a low-priced service, but then is forced to purchase a higher-priced one. Since 2017, GC Strategies has received $46 million in federal funding and was the largest single beneficiary of the ArriveCan app. Simply put, the Trudeau government has rigged the system to prefer GC Strategies in the awarding of contracts.
And you got to wonder specifically why the Liberal Party is even willing to do something that on its face looks so scandalous. It's a sole source contract to two random guys, and they're subcontracting out like it's nobody's business. Everybody's being subcontracted out. Like probably one member of my family was probably subcontracted out on this. There's just so much money flying around. Not actually, don't come at me. But like that, I don't understand. Like, and so when you look at this, you have to think, why would you take such a stupid risk on these two guys spending this much money for a product that barely worked at all and shouldn't have ever been actually contracted to be built because all the COVID vaccine mandates were completely insane and authoritarian? But you got to think that if an investigator dives deeper into this, if an investigator when the report on Monday is released on kind of just all the financial issues that went on here, there should be a further RCMP investigation into the PMO or into any ministry connected with this so they can figure out who got money and did any of those people actually give donations to the Liberal Party of Canada, because easily all of them would get a tax credit for doing it anyways. So a lot of these people probably, as some sort of a requirement in order to get money, had to give money back to the Liberal Party in some way. Maybe it didn't happen, but the Liberal government, far less corrupt Liberal governments like the Chrétien government, have done it before, and I wouldn't put anything past Trudeau.
And to add insult to injury, these two guys consistently did not document their services. As per the ombudsman, GC Strategies submitted shoddy paperwork so significant that it stood out as an outlier from others. Let's remember previous testimony from Christian Firth, one of the two founders of this so-called consulting firm. He confirmed that he made a mistake when he intentionally doctored resumes from Bottler AI. Not once, but numerous times. It's no wonder the RCMP are investigating Mr. Firth and his company for criminality.
As a word of advice, do not use AI.
But let us not forget, this egregious, unlawful scheme in government procurement has been allowed to grow under Justin Trudeau for the last 8 years. Just imagine what other schemes are out there. Federal outsourcing has increased to $14.6 billion just in the last year. That's 74% higher than when Trudeau promised in 2015 to cut back on the use of external consultants. I will continue to fight on your behalf and shed light.
So I'm going to cut him off there, but Larry Brock is doing great work. I will link his video in the description as well for X if you guys want to go and share and like his video. It's very good. But yeah, he's right that there is easily, if this is what's going on with this singular app, or at least with this GC firm, this two guys since 2017, there's gotta be something else going on. And so we shouldn't be thinking of corruption as this single vector kind of a issue where a Trudeau government gives money to a former Liberal MP who ends up basically procuring cheap masks from some subcontractor, and they fulfill their COVID mask contract and they get a big piece of cut of money, even though he had literally nothing to do with it. I think it was ventilators that there was a former MP involved in a scam with, but that's a very one line kind of a scam. Liberal Party gives money to a liberal individual who they probably owe a bunch of favors to. That's corruption. That's already bad. Sole source contracts are cancerous. But this one's even worse, where it's such a massive amount of money going to a couple guys who it'd be insane to think that they're not friends with somebody in the Liberal government or party, and that when the money is going to not just one other subcontractor who made the app and then passed it back, this is going to hundreds, if not thousands of people who are getting a cut of this. And when you're doing something like that, it's very easy to hide some sort of money laundering into parties. And that's why the committee that was investigating this, the Bloc, NDP, and Liberals, all shut down any further investigations. I just want to read a couple of lines from a Globe and Mail article about this. It's absolutely insane, the way that they're just so brazen about covering this up. There is one line I want to get to. Yeah. So this is Majid Jahari, who is the vice chairman of this committee set up to investigate this scandal. And he said, now we're seeing OMG, based on this report, this is even going deeper than we expected. So it is not that we don't want to do the study or we are trying to hide something, said Mr. Jahari, but no means is our side trying to stop studying ArriveCan. What we're suggesting is a pause. So it's not, they're not blocking the investigation. They just don't want the investigation moving forward in any way. And Jahari described this report as scary. I bet it's scary, but he kind of buys it back and then says, well, it's scary because it seems like it might be slandering good people and they're going too far. I've never seen the Liberal Party actually care about people's personal privacy. Just look at the COVID era. They could care less. They don't actually care. I think that they know if they go far enough, they're going to find someone who has a connection back to the Liberal Party or different firms that were giving money to them. This is why this is a ticking time bomb, because if it comes back that the Liberal government is just effectively stealing taxpayer money and then giving it back to themselves, it killed the Chrétien government with $3 million. You better believe it's going to kill a Trudeau government with $54 million. At least with SNC Lavalin, you could argue, it's still asinine to do, but you could argue that they're trying to protect people's jobs because they don't want SNC to lose a bunch of contracts and a bunch of people go out of work. It's a stupid argument still, because a lot of those, like the contracts that SNC Lavalin was taking, the public contracts, would just go to other firms. Other firms would even just be created out of thin air in order to fulfill such lucrative contracts. It would happen. Money motivates people. We Charity, you could say that at least we was technically going to fulfill some educational requirements, some educational services that the government wanted to offer, and the scandals part was Liberal Party or Justin Trudeau family members were getting paid to do speaking at these We Charity events. It really doesn't matter if the Trudeau family gets another $50,000, $60,000, which was what that scandal was about. In a certain sense, yes, that's bad. It should defeat any government, but at least it's not actually couldn't go towards potentially trying to illicitly fund an election campaign through taxpayer money being handed back to the Liberal Party. That's what makes this one so bad, is that there is election implications to what the Liberals are doing, that they could potentially boost up their pot of money out of nowhere through sending money out to a spider web of Trudeau or Liberal allies, and then having them send a portion of it to the party and getting tax credits in order to do so. Anyways, that should be it for me today. I want to talk a little bit about the scandal more in the future in more granular detail on little things that come out. I will definitely be talking about that report that's going to come out Monday, as Larry Brock was going to get to in his video. I've linked his Twitter video in the description below. I also have my usual Give, Send, Go link down there for the legal fund. We have a silly developer trying to sue us over defamation, in which we had a guest writer mention him in an article about Aaron O'Toole, and everything that was mentioned about him was based off a report by the Globe and Mail that already came out 2 years before. And so he's suing us over us saying nothing new about him. And he just thinks that he can bully us into silence, even though the Globe and Mail article is still up and has never had to issue a retraction because, frankly, everything said in it was true. And then also, again, I'm running for the Calgary Signal Hill Conservative Party nomination. So if you live in Calgary Signal Hill, check out my website, WyattClaypool.com, buy a membership, and let's make sure we have real conservatives in Conservative Party ridings. Just like in Burlington, if you live in Burlington, vote in the nomination for Emily Brown. And in a future video, I'll see if I can create a list of other people and other nominations that are worth backing. But regardless of what riding you guys live in, buy a CPC membership, a conservative membership, get involved in your local board, get involved in your nomination races so we can make sure that red Tories or defecting liberals don't try and sneak in to a Poilievre government. Anyways, that should be it for me today. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. Been a bit of a longer video, but I hope that this has at least given you an insight onto the scope of how bad Arrive scam is going to be.